So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to this instance of the Antrea community meeting. Today is October the 11th, or of course, if you're dialing in from the United States, for you will still be October the 10th. And for today, we have a very interesting presentation from Chan about layer 7 network policies. This is a proposal which is already advertised on the Antrea GitHub, and since I believe that we have now a good quorum of attendees on the call, I also think that we can get started. So, Chan, over to you, and yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Salvatore, and thanks everyone for joining this meeting. And I will present the proposal for the 7 policy. I have created the above issue in Antrea report, and I have gotten some comments from Ding Yang, and we had some discussion there. And I will share more details about the use case of this feature and the design and the implementation proposal. Please feel free to interrupt me at any time if you have any question. Let's first take a look at the motivation for this feature. As you know, Kubernetes net policy and Antrea native net policy can only control traffic flow at layer 3 and layer 4 based on the packets, IP address, the transport protocol, and the transport port. So securing applications communicating via HTTP protocols at IP and port level provides very limited security, as the API will be either entirely exposed to a client or not at all. So if you want something like some ports can access your application, the public page of your application, but not other secured pages. It is not possible to achieve that with Kubernetes net policy and the current Antrea net policies. So layer 7 net policy can provide more fine-grained control over the network traffic of container workloads based on the specific application protocol attributes. For example, for HTTP protocol, we can use domain, webs, and URI paths to control the access. So you can achieve that for some public page, it can be allowed, it can be accessed by all clients. But for some privileged page like admin or backend, you can grant access to only a few privileged ports. So this is the proposal of the API. I propose to use a CRD like our current Antrea native net policy to take the request from user. And when I was considering whether we should extend the current net policy to support layer 7 protocol, or we should create an API for layer 7 policy only, I found that due to implementation restriction, it may be not good to extend the current net policy API because it is very hard to support lower priority and tier priority like current layer 4 policy. It is mainly because almost all layer 7 engines I have investigated don't support lower priority. Then if we reuse the layer 4 net policy API, the major attributes of the struct will not make sense, like the tier and the priority. And since layer 4 and layer 7 has the protocol has different values. For example, for layer 4 we use SMP, TCP, and UDP, and for layer 7 we use HTTP, FTP, or some DNS, something like that. they don't have many attributes in common. So I propose to have a new layer 7 nail policy API, and it will not use the priority model like Kubernetes, like our current Antrea nail policy, but use whitelist mode. It's similar to Kubernetes nail policy. By default, a pod is non-isolated at layer 7, and all inbound and outbound requests at layer 7 will be allowed. But this does not conflict with layer 4 nail policy. They are only allowed after layer 7 nail policy allows them. So they are additive policies. And for layer 7 nail policy, once a pod is has any layer 7 nail policy, selects it, and the nail policy has any ingress rule, the pod is isolated for ingress. Means that it will only the only allowed request to the pod are those allowed by the ingress list of all layer 7 nail policy that applies to the pod. If you are familiar with Kubernetes nail policy, they are basically the same. And same for egress. And it's as we have mentioned, its relationship with layer 4 nail policy is the data plane will first enforce layer 4 nail policy, and then after the traffic has passed the validation, the data plane will enforce layer 7 nail policy. And this is the API struct of the object of struct of layer 7 nail policy. Is also similar to our current layer 4 nail policy, but without the priority and the tail attribute. It has applied two fields to select workloads on which the rules will be applied to, and it has a list of ingress rule and a list of egress rule. And for each rule, there will be a list of protocols, a list of layer 7 protocols. Currently, for the first release, I propose to only support HTTP protocol as it's the most common one. And for HTTP protocol, I list 3 attributes that are commonly used: host, method, and path. You list another protocol just for example of how we could extend the protocol support, but it will not be planned in the first release, as the only used DNS service should be the core DNS. So I'm not sure whether it really makes sense to have a DNS protocol support for the 7 nail policy. And for each rule, if it's an ingress rule, it will have a list of phone address, a list of peer. The attributes is named phone, means where the traffic could come from. This will reuse the nail policy peer object, the nail policy peer struct of layer 4 nail policy. And if it's egress rule, it will have a 2 field, meaning the destination of the traffic. And it will also have a name to describe the intention of this rule. Let's take a look at an example. For such a layer 7 nail policy, it applies to ports with label app equals to nginx. So this port will be applied the narrow policy will be applied to this port. And we have two ingress rules. The first one selects ports with app equal client1 label, this one, and it will allow that that client to access the docs page and using the get method of the NGX port. And the second rule will allow client 2 to access admin page using get method. And since there is no rule for client 3, it will be and the NGX port is isolated. So this request to any page using any method will be dropped. But for client 1, it can only use get docs to access NGX, but not other URL and other methods. Same for client 2. And so this is the proposal of the API. If no questions, I could go to implementation proposal.
Chen, I have 2 questions on the policy definition.
Yes, please.
So first, for example, if I just want to control the DNS, like my app can only query particular FQDN with DNS to a DNS server.
Yeah.
But since layer 7 is evaluated after layer 4, does that mean I have to also whitelist all the layer 4 traffic I want to allow? Even I just want to control DNS.
If you just want to control DNS, I think you could just define a layer 7 narrow policy as after the I assume you mean egress rule, right? The egress.
Sure, for example, egress rules.
Yeah. So after you apply a layer 7 narrow policy rule to that port, all its DNS request will be dropped by default, and only the allowed address, the allowed query, will pass the validation.
So the isolation rule is per protocol. It's like you have one rule for layer 7 and one rule for layer 4.
It's per layer 7.
I mean the default drop rule. Sorry.
The default drop rule will be only for that protocol. For example, if you have an HTTP protocol, then it will drop all other HTTP protocols access except the allowed one. This is made.
Okay, got it.
This is made because we cannot support all protocols. But if we don't have the protocol support in the API, but we allow them, then I think when we support a new protocol, the meaning of the existing rule will change. For example, when we don't support DNS in the first release, let me see. One major concern is that there is no, due to implementation restriction, there's no way to say all protocol like OpenFlow in layer 7 engine. We must specify one protocol, and if we want to say all protocol, then we have to list all possible protocols there, like HTTP allow drop all, DNS drop all, or something like that.
Okay.
So
yeah, I probably need to think about that for a little more. But I think I got what you mean. But just like if I want to say I allow only DNS but not HTTP, then I have to. I also need to define HTTP rule.
Yeah. You should define an
Okay.
you should specify protocol, HTTP, and use an empty selector.
I see. Okay, got it.
But you could also combine layer 4 and the layer 7 policy. For
Yeah,
example,
understood.
yeah.
Understood.
Hello, Chen. I have one question about the HTTP protocol.
Yeah.
I want to know the relationship between host and the from our two or apply to addresses.
Sorry, can you repeat?
I want to know how shall we use the host field in HTTP protocol? Because you know we also have apply to and from our to define the addresses in the HTTP's connections.
I get your question. The host is for the domain of the HTTP attribute. For when you access a website, you could specify a domain, right? This means you can only access the service via some domain, because an IP could be mapped from multiple IP domain names, right? You could use www.google.com to access it. You could also use some other domain to access the same application. This means the HTTP domain, actually the attributes is called host, not domain. It's an application layer attribute. Something like, let me think how to.
So if host is empty, I see that the host is allowed to be empty. So if it is not set, it means any access to the apply to port address should be applied up with the rule. Is that correct?
No. It means you can use any host name to access the HTTP service. You could use any domain name.
Okay.
It has no relation. It has nothing to do with the apply to. It's the layer 7 attribute. Just like method and pass, you can only access, for example, admin page of a website, right? But before the admin page, the URL part, the prefix of your URL is a domain, right?
Yeah.
Something like www dot something. That's the host. If this field is not set, it just means you can use any domain name to access the service.
Got it. Thanks for the explanation. I have a second question. Is the layer 7 now policy applied to external nodes?
External node.
Yeah. For example, VM, something like that.
I think it's possible. Yeah. From the implementation perspective, I think it's possible. Yeah, but this is not planned in this release, I assume.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
The only required things are traffic redirection and setting up a layer 7 engine to implement this feature. So I think it has nothing to do with whether this is a container or it's a virtual machine.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. If no other question, I will. Yeah, please. Okay. Let's go to
I have a question on the this slide.
Yeah.
So yeah, next slide. Next. Yeah. So client, does it mean like this is like the app or some organization, or like who is going to use Antrea, or what exactly it means?
You mean this app?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, this is just an example of label. It's a Kubernetes style of selecting entities. It could be anything. It's just a key value pair. You can label or tag objects with something like this. Then you can use this selector to select objects. This is just an example. It could be anything. You can use organization. You can use username or anything else.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Okay, let's go to the implementation.
Sorry to interrupt, Chance.
Yeah, please.
I want to ask for the host of the previous page.
Yeah.
For the host, does it include the pod or only domain?
It includes domain only. At least when I wrote this proposal, I was thinking about domain only. I didn't include port because typically we don't really need to care the transport port the protocol use. It could be 80, or it could be 8080 or any other port. Yeah, but I also have an open question similar to your questions, and whether we should make layer 7 layer policy only be enforced to specific layer 4 port. For example, for HTTP protocol, whether we should add an attribute called port to say it will only be applied to port 80. Yeah, I think it is there is the benefit of having this port field will be you will only the layer 7 engine will only scan traffic to that port only, so don't need to scan, and the data plane doesn't need to redirect all traffic to that port to layer 7 engine. Just so it's about cost, but it may be not very convenient for user because, but of course we could make it optional. Like if user want to specify the port, we only filter traffic to that port. If user don't specify it, we will scan all traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just one more question. Like this is like HTTP. What about HTTPS? Will it allow HTTPS? I mean, are we going to add the HTTPS support as well here?
It's made because technical restriction. It's very hard to support HTTPS because it's encrypted the traffic. We cannot know the protocol, the HTTP attributes. For example, we cannot inspect the host. We can inspect host field, but we cannot inspect method or path from the traffic itself. We need to decrypt the request first, then we can only do that. So at least for the first release or in the few upcoming release, I think it's very hard to support HTTPS unless we make some trick, like Istio. We also provide intermediate CA to and make the application use our intermediate certificate, so we can decrypt and encrypt it again. But it's very complex, so it's not in the current plan.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
But it's possible to support host field for HTTPS, because I remember there is a field called something like domain indication or something like that. You can know which host, which domain the request HTTPS request is for.
I think it's SN9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are correct. Yeah. Okay.
Hey Chan, sorry, following up on I think Janjun's question previously. So is it possible to define a layer 7 network policy that says only accept HTTP traffic?
Only accept HTTP traffic.
Like have an ingress rule for a pod, for example, that says accept HTTP traffic and reject all other traffic.
Oh, I get what you mean. I think if in the way I was thinking, you can specify a protocol to be HTTP, and you don't specify the phone, or you make the phone to be empty, so it will match all address. Then it will allow all HTTP requests. But if you want to deny other protocols, at least for the one with support, then you need to specify DNS and protocol as well. And
yeah, but there is no way to say all other protocols, right? Like FTP and etc.
Yeah, it's a good question. Then possibly we need to change the meaning of the protocol. Oh no, I think it's hard to achieve with current 7 engine. The main reason is still the same. If you want to disallow other protocols, we must list all other protocols in the rules, in the 7 engine compatible rules. You must say drop FTP protocol and the drop.
So you cannot have a wildcard with a lower precedence and say if it's not HTTP, drop the traffic. You cannot say that with the implementation.
Yeah, at least from what I know, I didn't find that wildcard example, but I could investigate. Maybe it's possible. Yeah, I would take a note and update you.
Okay, thanks.
Chan, one more thing, just to confirm, if the layer 4 policy drop the traffic, it will not go to the layer 7 engine anymore, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, got it. I mean, even it's dropped by default delay, then the traffic will not go to layer 7.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's go to the implementation. The workflow is like this. Users create a layer 7 narrow policy CR, and we need Antrea controller and the Antrea agent to be involved to implement the whole workflow. For Antrea controller, like other narrow policies, we will convert the 7 narrow policy CR to internal or control plane narrow policy applied to group and just group objects, so that we can distribute the information of the policy itself and the address set and the workload set to agents. And we also need to create a traffic control object so that we can redirect the traffic to layer 7 engines. For example, here I propose to use Suricata, a layer 7 IDS IPS engine. I will explain more in the next page about how they will work together. Here I just want to give a brief description of the basic workflow. And the third step is the Antrea agent will watch the computed nail policy applied to group and address group from Antrea controller. And it will also watch the traffic control objects from Kubernetes API server. But this part is already supported, so we will not go much detail here. We just need to know that Antrea controller will be responsible for creating the traffic control objects to redirect the traffic. And Antrea agent will handle the layer policy, address group and apply to group objects, and convert them to layer 7 engine specific rules. For Suricata, it's called signatures. We will generate signatures and make Suricata instance to reload the rules we just updated. And Antrea agent will also handle the traffic control objects, redirect the selected traffic to layer 7 engine. But this is not something we need to do for this feature. It's already supported.
Qian, what's the communication channel between Antrea agent and the Suricata?
We don't really communicate directly. Suricata takes rules from files, so Antrea agent will only generate a signature file and then ask Suricata to reload. It's binary to ask Suricata to reload the rule.
So that means every time we need to provide a full set of rules and notify Suricata to reload.
Yes. From my investigation, I didn't see other ways to reload or provide the rules. Maybe there is another way, but for my POC, I just use this method. And the agent created the file and then call Suricata to load the file.
Do you see Suricata can be slow to reload a big set of rules?
I remember when I tested it with a public set of IDS rules, it takes a few seconds to load. I think that's a lot of signatures. I guess for our use case, since we may have only hundreds of layer 7 policies in a common cluster, maybe it will take very few seconds. I haven't tested it. I will take a note and test and do a performance benchmark test to see the delay.
I see. In that case, if we enable both IDS, IPS, and the layer 7 policy, we have 2 Suricata instances or just one to enforce the rules.
I think we need 2 instances. Yeah, I'm not very sure whether whether Suricata can support a different set of rules for different network interfaces. If it can support different signature for different interface, then it could be just one instance. If it cannot, then it has to be 2.
Okay. One last question for the rural generation. I mean the rural file generation. We should have some third-party library to use, right?
Uh,
I mean, when you generate the files with the there are some rules that we are leveraging any third-party code for that.
I didn't know a third party any third party library for that purpose. In POC code, I just formatted the rules myself, like we did for IP tables rules. I think it's not very complex, maybe not very worth to have a library to do that, because the
I saw the file format is binary, right?
No, it's not binary. It's
not a binary.
Plain text. I have an example in following pages.
Okay. Probably I remember it wrong. I saw this binary. Got it.
And in Antrea controller, you will basically do two things. The first one is we will reuse the nail policy controller to convert the 7 nail policy CRs to our internal control plane nail policy applied to group address group objects. So for example, like this the 7 nail policy object, we will create such a control plane nail policy. The difference, it is the only difference is the protocol. It will be HTTP instead of TCP and UDP, like layer 4 policy. And the source reference will point to a type of layer 7 nail policy. Yeah. So they can reuse the same internal API. And you will do another thing to sync traffic control objects. Take this as an example. We only cache the apply to workloads. So we will create a traffic control object having the same selector, and we will redirect all its traffic to an interface we hard coded, and we will also specify a return port for the traffic. Then we will ask Srikata to listen to these two interfaces. And to track their relationship, we will also specify the owner reference of the traffic control objects, so that Kubernetes garbage collector could help us to clean the traffic control objects when this layer 7 nail policy is deleted. And it could also help track the mapping between layer 7 nail policy and the traffic control. And in Antrea agent, first it will realize traffic control request is in existing feature, so we will not talk too much about it. The second thing is it will we will add a layer 7 rule engine interface and an implementation of Srikata. So the implementation will start Srikata instance in IPS mode on demand. On demand means that when there is no layer 7 nail policy received, it will not run Srikata instance. And once the first layer 7 rule is received, it will start the instance. And the binary of Srikata will be packaged to Antrea agent image. So we don't need, so user don't have to use different manifest when they want to use their 7 feature, their 7 policy feature. I checked the bandwidth has only few megabytes, so it should be okay. And the second thing is it will do is to convert control plane nail policy to Srikata signatures and make Srikata reload the rules. Take this as an example. The apply to address group will be translated to, in the example, I have only one address in each group. It will be translated to this IP address. And the address group will be translated to this IP address. And since it's HTTP protocol and its HTTP attributes has only pass, which is docs. So we will generate 2 rules like this. The first one is a pass rule. It will say pass HTTP from this address, from any port to this address, to any port. And the URI attribute must match this string. And to make other traffic being dropped, we need to add another rule for default drop, which means all other protocols, all other peers will be dropped. This is the reason why supporting other protocols, default drop other protocols difficult. This has to be a specific protocol, as far as I know. It could support other, it could support the transport protocol as well, like TCP UDP. Yeah, maybe that is a way to say allow only HTTP. We could say drop TCP and drop UDP, and maybe drop SMP as well. If we want.
I think you can do drop IP, no, for all IP packets. I don't remember.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're correct. Yeah, I will try that. Yeah, I think it's a good suggestion. I forgot that. Yeah, then maybe drop IP and drop IPv6. And here, this is a note from Srikata documents. It says that even though we could have a priority field for each signature, it's not the order the signature will be scanned. The signature will only be scanned by the order of action first, then the order of priority. So, even we say pass priority 1, drop priority 2, and then another pass priority 3, it will still scan the first and the third one first, then the drop one. That's the major restriction why we cannot have the priority and the tail in layer 7 nail policy API. The order of action can be changed, but even which we reward the order, it will just be a blacklist mode. So I choose whitelist mode, like a Kubernetes nail policy. And for data plane, when there is no layer 7 nail policy applied to these 2 ports, they will communicate directly. And once we have layer 7 nail policy applied to either of them, their communication will be redirected to Srikata first. Then Srikata will scan the signatures and enforce the action. It could be pass, then the traffic will be sent back to data plane and finally delivered to destination, or it will be dropped. It can also support reject, but I haven't planned it in the first release. let's do a quick demo about the feature. I presume you can see my screen, my console. Okay.
Yep.
Then let's. Currently, there is no the 7 policy defined. So currently, we can use the client port to access NGX port. We can access any pages, though some pages does not exist, but we can get the response from the server itself, and we can use any method. Let me create a 7 policy. I will only apply this policy to NGX port and only allow access from HTTP equal true ports. And this is the only allowed path and method. Now let's try to access the root page again. The traffic will be dropped. You can see there's no response. And the other page will also be dropped. The only allowed request will be docs, though it does not exist. And because we also specify get method, it's not allowed to use other method. Yeah, the traffic will also be dropped. And if I delete this label, it can no longer access this page. Let's take a look at the signature part and how Suricata runs. I will add let me add the label back so we can see its rule. In Antrea agent, there will be a Suricata instance running, and we can see its configuration will include our customized configuration. We ask the Suricata instance to take traffic from Suricata 0 interface and Suricata 1 and running in IPS mode, and copy the traffic from the first one to the second one and from the second one to the first one when the traffic pass the enforcement. And the rule is in this directory, and the rule file is named like this. As you can see, this is the signatures converted from the layer 7 layer policy. If we delete the label, the form will be empty. Yeah, you can see it's empty, so no clients are allowed to access the NGX page. This is about the demo. Let's go back to presentation. I also have some open questions. First is about the API name. I use the 7 policy in the proposal, but I'm then open to take other suggestions. Something maybe, do you guys think app name policy will be better or app policy? or something other. And the second is like the question Xiaopei asked it, whether we should have a port field like this to say only scan traffic to this transport port. And the third one is meaning of layer 7 policy with empty protocols, whether it means matching all protocols or matching no protocols. I think from implementation perspective, matching, but with Antoni's suggestion, maybe it's possible to do both. Yeah, I will think more about it, and any suggestion is welcome. The first one is I didn't show in the demo. When I deploy Antrea, I turned on this configuration. This configuration is introduced when adding traffic control feature. It's made because once the packet is handed by a user space instance like Srikata, some attributes of the packets is not set correctly when the packet is sent back to the data plane. And this is a no issue to such applications. And to resolve it, the checksum offloading must be disabled. So the sender itself will calculate the checksum, and the issue could be avoided. I'm still investigating whether there is other solution, but currently this is the workaround. And
Chen, did you see performance issues when disabling this?
Actually, I didn't see, but you know, it will have some cost. I haven't done careful benchmark test. Yeah, I will also do that as a follow-up.
Okay,
but basically, I think it makes some hardware offloading meaningless, and calculating checksum when the traffic doesn't leave the server is a waste, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And the last one is the performance, like of managing the rules, like Jianjun asked it. You know, in Kubernetes, if we have something like sec all ports, there could be hundreds, thousands of IP address. Then we have to list all IP address in one signature. I'm not sure. I'm not very familiar with the implementation detail of the 7 engine, but it looks like it may be not very efficient to pass the rule or to scan the rule when a packet hits it. Yeah. So yeah, I will also evaluate the management and the data plane performance when we have layer 7 policy in a large scale cluster. Yeah.
Chen, one more question. When the 2 is FQDN, what we do here? Let me see.
2 FQDN.
Do you plan to support that? Because for layer 4, we support FQDN to be the 2, right? To be the destination address. I mean.
Oh, I see.
Oh, that is not in the.
I think at least in the first release, it's hard to do that, because if we want to support 2 FQDN, oh no, actually the QF2 for 2FQDN, it can be provided by host, right? The host field. If you
You mean the
want,
HTTP case?
yeah.
I saw the 2FQDN can be any protocol in our current layer 4 policy, right?
Oh yes.
So for the 4FTP, you can use host. Okay, well, let's think about it.
At least we only support the HTTP in this release. Then if you want that,
DNS.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and the current plan in 1. Oh, I think it's not 1.9. It should be 1.10. I propose to support HTTP protocol in 1.10 and support other protocols based on user feedback in later releases. And that's all of the presentation. And, if you have any other questions, welcome.
Thanks a lot, Chan. Thanks a lot. It was a very great presentation, very informative. And if anyone from the team has any question, please go ahead.
Yeah, so may I ask a question on the engine selection? For example, for now, we are using the Suricata. And does Suricata support all of the commonly used application protocols we want to implement?
It has common applications, but actually I don't find many. Actually, I'm very sure whether user want what protocols user normally want. It supports FTP, SSH, many protocols and DNS, but yeah, I think it's similar to other layer 7 engines. I think it's similar to Snort as well. Yeah, but
Okay.
I think it depends on whether what's the requirement.
Yeah, I'm asking because in some other solutions I see they are using Envoy, and Envoy supports, for example, gRPC and the HTTP and a rich set of matching on HTTP, which set of rules for matching on HTTP headers, path, and the various fields in HTTP. So maybe that is another kind of engine, and you can also easily extend the engine by programming some plugins for the Envoy. So I'm not sure if Suricata is also like this. We can extend the Suricata to support any layer 7 protocols we want.
Yeah, I think so. When we discussed with Suricata experts, they said if you want to support other protocols, you can use signatures to do that. Even Suricata does not have the protocol parser. The major problem of using Envoy is actually a proxy. So it works in layer 4, at layer 4. You will create sockets to take the request and then resend a new request to the back end. So currently in our traffic control implementation, we actually work at layer 2. We just forward the traffic to one network interface and ask the 7 engine to take request form. So it could work very well with the IDS, IPS engines like Snort, Suricata, or maybe there are other solutions, but it cannot easily work with Envoy. And we also evaluated Envoy before, and because of the nature of proxy, it also has some restrictions. Yeah. for example, it's not transparent. And
Yes.
yeah, so
Got it.
yeah, we did some investigation and also evaluated the performance. At least when we are evaluating engines like Suricata, it's more performant than Envoy as a proxy.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Do we have any more questions for Chan? We are already a little bit over time, but I'm pretty sure that we still have time for 1 or 2 questions. Waiting 10 more seconds for additional questions. All right, it seems that might be all for today. So thanks a lot, Chan, for this presentation. It's been extremely informative, and we are looking forward to see this implementation going GA in Antrea 1.10. That's going to be a really nice addition to the set of Antrea features, Antrea network policy features, and of course, we'll have plenty of time to argue about the right naming for the CRs that are going to be added as a part of this feature. So this is your last chance to ask any question. If you don't have any question, I will proceed with stop the recording, and thanks again, Chan, for this presentation.
Thank you, Salvatore. Thank you all.
Okay, so I assume that this is all for today. So thanks everyone for attending, and talk to you again in 2 weeks' time. I wish everyone a good day, a good afternoon, or a good night. Thanks for joining, and bye.